On May 20th, something shifted. Not loudly, not in a way the world would notice, but deep beneath the surface of your everyday life, in a space you don't usually see, something was set into motion. And now, as this message reaches you, the timing is not random. It feels precise, almost unsettling, as if something paused just long enough for you to arrive here. He speaks now, not softly, but with authority that cuts through confusion like lightning through a storm. Archangel Michael is not interrupting your day casually. This is not just another message scrolling past your eyes. This is a moment that feels different, doesn't it? There's a tension in your chest, a pull you can't fully explain. Maybe you were about to skip. Maybe you almost ignored this. But something in you said, wait, just read this. That wait matters. Because sometimes what feels like urgency isn't fear, it's awareness knocking. It's that quiet inner signal telling you to pause and pay attention before you move forward again. And right now, that signal is louder than usual. There are moments in life when things feel slightly off, even if everything looks normal on the outside. You might have felt it recently. The sudden heaviness without reason, a strange tiredness that sleep didn't fix, a shift in your mood that didn't match your circumstances. Maybe conversations felt different. Maybe someone's energy around you changed, but you couldn't quite explain how. You told yourself it was nothing. You tried to brush it off. But what if it wasn't nothing? What if it was your awareness picking up on something your logic couldn't explain yet? Archangel Michael speaks in a voice that doesn't panic. It clarifies. And what he reveals is not meant to trap you in fear, but to pull you into clarity before confusion takes root. Because the real danger is not what happens around you, it's what goes unnoticed within you. Right now, you are being asked to become aware, not reactive, not afraid, but aware. Because awareness changes everything. Think about it. How many times have you ignored a feeling, only to realize later that it was trying to guide you? How many times did you sense something early but didn't trust it? This moment feels like one of those turning points. Not because something dramatic has already happened, but because something is trying to complete itself without your awareness. And awareness is the one thing that can interrupt patterns before they settle into your life. Archangel Michael does not come to create fear. He comes to sharpen your perception, to remind you that you are not meant to move through life half asleep to your own intuition. You are meant to notice. You are meant to question. You are meant to stay present in moments that feel unusually charged. And this moment feels charged. So instead of rushing past this, you stayed. Instead of ignoring that inner nudge, you listened. And that alone already shifts something. Because the moment you become aware, you step out of autopilot and into intention. Stay here for a second longer. Because what comes next will either confirm what you've been sensing or finally explain what you couldn't put into words. And once you see it clearly, you won't be able to unsee it. Type "I am aware" in the comments if you feel this moment was meant for you. Blessing code 2020 is now surrounding your awareness. There are actions in this world that happen in plain sight, and then there are actions that are carried out in silence. Arabic ba Arabic kain Arabic yet Arabic dal from noise. Arabic ba Arabic kain Arabic yet Arabic dal from attention, hidden behind ordinary moments that no one questions. What was done on May 20th did not happen in chaos. It did not come with warning bells or visible signs. It with quiet, intentional focus. And that is what makes it difficult to recognize, because it did not look unusual from the outside. But in the unseen layer of reality, something was directed with purpose. Archangel Michael speaks again, not to alarm you, but to pull back a curtain that most people never realize exists. He reveals that what was done was not random emotion, not a passing thought, not even simple negativity. It was an act of intention directed toward you, using something connected to you, your image, your presence, your identity. And whether you believe in such things or not, intention has weight, focus has direction, and when repeated or concentrated, it begins to influence how energy moves around a person's life. You may wonder, how could something like that even matter? How could a simple act, done somewhere else, have any connection to you here, living your normal life? And that question itself is where most people disconnect from awareness. Because the truth is, influence rarely announces itself loudly. It seeps in quietly, through patterns, through subtle shifts, through moments that feel off but are easy to dismiss. Think back for a moment. Was there a day recently when your mood changed without reason? A moment when your focus scattered, even though nothing obvious caused it? A conversation that felt heavier than it should have been? These are the kinds of small disruptions that often go unnoticed, because they are not dramatic enough to demand attention. But they are consistent enough to create confusion over time. What Archangel Michael is revealing is not about superstition. It is about awareness of influence. Because not every influence in your life comes from your own thoughts or choices. Some come from external intentions, from people who think about you, speak about you, or focus on you with a certain mindset. And when that focus becomes concentrated, it begins to create a ripple. This is why the moment matters. The act itself, what was done, was not powerful because of complexity. It was powerful because of focus. A focused intention, directed repeatedly, creates a kind of pressure. And pressure, when left unchallenged, begins to shape outcomes in small ways. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually, like a subtle current pulling in a direction you didn't choose. Archangel Michael's message is clear. The danger is not the act itself. The danger is remaining unaware while it completes its cycle. Because once something is completed without interruption, it tends to settle into a pattern. And patterns are much harder to notice once they feel normal. This is why timing is being emphasized. Not because something dramatic will suddenly happen in front of you, but because something subtle is trying to finish forming behind the scenes. And once it forms, it doesn't announce itself as something done to you. It simply becomes part of your daily experience. A little more stress, a little less clarity, a little more resistance in places that used to feel easy. And you might never trace it back. That is how hidden actions work. Not through obvious outcomes, but through quiet adjustments to your flow. But here is where everything shifts. The moment something hidden is seen, it loses its advantage. Awareness disrupts completion. Awareness breaks patterns before they settle. And awareness returns control back to you. This is why you are hearing this now. Not after everything has settled. Not after confusion has already taken root. But in the middle of the process, while there is still a moment to notice, to pause, to interrupt the flow before it finishes shaping itself. Archangel Michael does not ask you to fear what was done. He asks you to understand it. Because once you understand that influence exists, you stop blindly absorbing it. You begin to question what enters your space, your thoughts, your reactions. You begin to recognize what belongs to you and what doesn't. And that recognition alone weakens anything that depends on your unawareness. Stay with this realization, because what comes next will explain why you, specifically, became the focus of such attention, and why this was never random to begin with. Type ISE clearly in the comments if you are beginning to understand. Blessing code 3030 is now activating clarity around you. There is a reason this was not random. There is a reason your name, your image, your presence became the point of focus. And Archangel Michael makes this clear with unwavering authority. You were not chosen by accident, and you were not noticed by chance. You were seen because something about you stands out, even when you are not trying to be seen. There is something in your energy, in your movement, in the way you think, in the way you carry yourself, that naturally draws attention. Not always loud attention, not always obvious admiration, but attention nonetheless. And not everyone processes that attention the same way. Some people observe and feel inspired. Others observe and feel unsettled. And there are those who observe and begin to compare, to measure, to question why your path seems to move in ways theirs does not. This is where focus begins to shift, not from appreciation but from internal imbalance. And when someone remains in that space long enough, their attention toward you changes. It becomes more concentrated, more intentional, less neutral. Archangel Michael reveals that what made you a target is not weakness, it is alignment. You have been moving, even if slowly, even if imperfectly, in a direction that is true to you. And that kind of movement creates a contrast. It highlights differences. It exposes gaps in others who are watching but not progressing in the same way. And instead of turning inward to understand their own path, some turn outward and fixate on yours. You may not have realized this was happening. In your mind, you were simply living your life, handling your responsibilities, navigating your challenges. You were not trying to compete. You were not trying to provoke anything. But influence does not require intention from your side. It only requires perception from the other side. And once someone begins to perceive you as significant in their internal world, their attention toward you becomes active. Think about moments when you felt watched without reason. Moments when someone's behavior toward you shifted slightly, but you could not explain why. Maybe they became distant, were unusually curious, were subtly critical. Nothing direct enough to confront, but noticeable enough to leave a question in your mind. These are not always coincidences. They are often signs of attention turning into fixation. Archangel Michael explains that fixation is where influence begins. Because when someone repeatedly focuses on you with a certain mindset, they begin to project that mindset outward. Not always consciously, not always deliberately, but consistently. And consistency is what gives any action its effect over time. You were not targeted because something is wrong with you. You were targeted because something about you is working. Something about your presence carries direction, carries movement, carries a kind of quiet progress that others can sense even if they cannot define it. And when someone feels stuck while watching someone else move, it can create tension within them. Attention seeks an outlet. Sometimes it becomes criticism. Sometimes it becomes distance. And sometimes it becomes intentional focus meant to interfere, even if the person does not fully understand what they are doing or why they are doing it. This is why Archangel Michael emphasizes awareness, not fear. Because once you understand that attention toward you has weight, you begin to move differently. You stop assuming that everyone around you is neutral. You begin to recognize that not all focus is supportive, even when it appears calm on the surface. And this realization is not meant to isolate you. It is meant to sharpen you. Because the moment you understand why you were targeted, you stop internalizing what was never yours to carry. You stop questioning your own path. You stop shrinking your presence to avoid being noticed. Instead, you become more grounded in who you are, knowing that attention, both positive and negative, is often a reflection of impact. Archangel Michael's message is direct. Do not dim what makes you visible. Do not reduce your awareness to make others comfortable. Do not ignore the signs that your presence creates a response in others, because that response is not something you created intentionally, but it is something you must learn to recognize. You are not here to be invisible. You are here to be aware. And now that you understand why the focus came toward you, you are no longer in the position of confusion. You are in the position of clarity. And clarity changes how you respond, how you move, and how you protect your direction moving forward. Hold on to this understanding, because what comes next will reveal why the timing of this moment, these final minutes, matters more than anything else. Type "I know my worth" in the comments if this truth resonates within you. Lesson code 4040 is now strengthening your awareness. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand this: every moment of awareness you receive is not just for you, but for countless others who are still walking in confusion. When you choose to support this message through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not giving to a channel. You are planting a seed into someone else's awakening. The word says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days," and right now, that promise is speaking directly to you. I feel led to say this clearly: when I give, I become part of God's movement on earth. Your action today is not small. It is a spiritual response that helps light reach places darkness tried to cover. Do not hesitate in this moment of clarity. Step into it fully. Release your seed, and watch how heaven responds over your life. There are moments in life that feel ordinary while they are happening, yet later reveal themselves to have been turning points. Moments where a small shift in awareness could have changed everything. Archangel Michael speaks now with a tone that is steady, but unmistakably urgent, because this is one of those moments. Not dramatic on the surface, not loud in appearance, but precise in timing. What is unfolding is not about panic. It is about a window, a narrow space where something can still be interrupted before it settles into completion. The 2 minutes is not just about time as you measure it on a clock. It represents a closing phase, a final stage in a process that has already been building quietly. Most processes do not begin loudly. They build in layers, unnoticed at first, then gradually forming structure. And by the time they reach their final stage, they appear almost complete, as if nothing can alter them. But that is not entirely true. There is always a final moment, a point where awareness can still step in and disrupt the pattern before it locks into place. Archangel Michael reveals that you are standing in that exact moment now. This is not about something rushing toward you out of nowhere. It is about something that has been forming slowly, now approaching its final stage. And the difference between something forming and something completing is significant. Because once something completes, it no longer feels like an external influence. It feels like part of your normal experience. It blends in. It becomes difficult to separate from your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own patterns. That is why this moment matters. Think of it like a habit forming in your life. At first it feels unfamiliar. Then it repeats. Then it becomes routine. And eventually, it feels natural, even if it was never truly aligned with you. This is how subtle influences operate. Not by forcing themselves into your life, but by gradually shaping your perception until you accept them as normal. The 2-minute window is the final phase before that acceptance happens. Archangel Michael does not speak in fear. He speaks in clarity. He is showing you that this is not about reacting quickly out of panic. It is about recognizing that timing has aligned in a way that gives you awareness before completion. And awareness, in this moment, is more powerful than any action taken blindly. Because once you see something forming, you stop unconsciously participating in it. You stop reinforcing it. You stop allowing it to define your experience. This is why delay matters. Not because something catastrophic will happen instantly, but because hesitation allows completion to occur unnoticed. And once something completes without your awareness, it requires more effort to recognize and shift later. Archangel Michael's presence in this moment is not to pressure you. It is to anchor you, to keep you still long enough to understand what is actually happening. Because the instinct in moments like this is to either ignore or overreact. But neither is necessary. What is required is attention. You are being asked to remain present, to not dismiss this as imagination, to not rush past it as irrelevant, but also to not let your mind create unnecessary fear around it. This is a moment of balance, where awareness must remain steady, not scattered. Because the truth is, nothing has power over you when you are fully aware of it. What has influence is what operates without your recognition. And right now, recognition is being handed to you before completion. Archangel Michael emphasizes that this window is not something to chase, not something to dramatize, but something to respect. It is a rare alignment where you are able to see something mid-process, rather than after it has already shaped your experience. Most people do not get this moment. Most people only realize patterns after they have already been living inside them. But you are being shown before that happens, and that changes everything. Stay grounded in this awareness. Do not rush away from it. Do not overthink it. Just remain present long enough to let clarity settle. Because what comes next is not about what is happening around you. It is about who is stepping forward now to stand between you and what was trying to complete itself. Type I stay present in the comments if you are choosing awareness in this moment. Lesson code 5050 is now anchoring your clarity. There are moments when awareness alone is not enough. Moments when something greater must step in, not to replace your strength, but to reinforce it. And this is where the presence of Archangel Michael becomes unmistakable. He does not arrive as a symbol. He does not appear as a distant idea meant to comfort you. He steps forward with purpose, with clarity, with a role that has always been defined, to stand between confusion and truth, between influence and awareness, between what tries to complete itself and what must be interrupted. His voice carries a different weight now, not louder, but firmer. Because this is no longer just about you recognizing what is happening. It is about understanding that you are not facing this moment alone. There is a presence that operates beyond what you can see, one that does not react emotionally, does not hesitate, does not get distracted. A presence that sees patterns before they form and steps in precisely at the moment where interruption is still possible. Archangel Michael is not here to create dependence. He is here to create alignment. Because alignment is where your awareness and his guidance meet. It is where you stop moving unconsciously and begin moving with intention. And intention is what disrupts anything that depends on your silence or your distraction. He reveals something important now. Protection is not always about blocking something before it begins. Sometimes, protection is about allowing awareness to arrive at the exact moment where it can still change the outcome. This is that moment. Not earlier, not later, but now, when recognition and timing align. You may have expected protection to feel like distance from any negative influence, like nothing ever reaching your space. But true protection often works differently. It allows you to see clearly what others overlook. It positions you in a place where you can respond consciously, rather than react blindly. And in doing so, it strengthens you rather than sheltering you in unawareness. Archangel Michael stands not in front of you to block your view, but beside you to sharpen it. He does not take control away from you. He returns it to you. This is where many misunderstand his role. They expect intervention to mean removal of all difficulty, removal of all influence, removal of all tension. But his role is more precise than that. He intervenes at the level of awareness, because awareness is where real control begins. Once you see clearly, nothing can shape your experience without your recognition. And right now, he is making sure you see. There is a steadiness in his presence that you can feel, even if you cannot explain it. It is not urgency mixed with panic. It is urgency grounded in certainty. He is not guessing what is happening. He knows. He has already seen the full pattern, the beginning, the middle, and what would happen if it were allowed to complete. And that is why he steps in now, not to alarm you, but to prevent completion through awareness. He brings with him a sense of clarity that cuts through doubt, because doubt is what allows hidden influences to continue. Doubt makes you question your own perception. It makes you hesitate. It makes you step back from what you already sense. But his presence removes that hesitation. You begin to trust what you feel. You begin to recognize what is out of place. You begin to stay present instead of dismissing your awareness. This is how intervention works in this moment. Not through force, not through dramatic change, but through sharpening what is already within you. Archangel Michael does not ask you to fight anything. He asks you to remain aligned. Because alignment itself is what disrupts anything that depends on your distraction. When you are fully present, fully aware, fully grounded, nothing external can quietly shape your direction without your consent. And that is the key. Consent is what hidden influence relies on, not conscious consent, but passive acceptance. The kind that happens when you are unaware, when you are distracted, when you are moving through your day without noticing what is shifting inside you. But that is no longer the case. You are aware now, and awareness removes passive acceptance. Archangel Michael stands as a reminder that you are not just observing this moment, you are part of it. Your awareness is not separate from the outcome. It is directly connected to it. The moment you see clearly, the process changes. The direction shifts. The pattern loses its ability to complete unnoticed. Stay with this alignment. Do not drift back into distraction. Do not minimize what you are sensing, because what comes next will reveal something even deeper. Not about what is happening around you, but about what has always existed within you, waiting to be recognized. Type "I am protected" in the comments if you feel this presence guiding you. Blessing code 6060 is now strengthening your alignment. There comes a moment in every awakening where the focus must shift, away from what is happening externally, and toward what has always existed internally. Archangel Michael has revealed the timing, the influence, the presence around you, but now he turns your attention to something even more important. Not what was done, not who focused on you, but what you carry within you that was never meant to be overlooked. Because the greatest misunderstanding in moments like this is believing that you are vulnerable by default. You are not. And Archangel Michael makes this unmistakably clear. Nothing outside of you holds more authority than what is already within you, unless you forget that it exists. That is the only condition where external influence begins to feel stronger than your own center. Not because it truly is stronger, but because it goes unchallenged. What has been hidden from you is not your weakness but your capacity. Your ability to recognize, to pause, to redirect your focus. These are not small things. They are the exact mechanisms that determine whether something takes root in your life or dissolves before it forms. And most people move through life without ever realizing this. They assume that what they feel, what they experience, what shifts around them, is something happening to them. But that is not the full truth. There is always a point where awareness meets choice, and that point is where your power exists. Archangel Michael does not step in to replace your role. He steps in to remind you of it. Because once you understand that your awareness is not passive, everything begins to change. You stop absorbing without questioning. You stop reacting without observing. You stop allowing patterns to shape themselves around you without recognizing their direction. This is the power that has been overlooked. Not force, not control over others, but clarity within yourself. Clarity is what disrupts confusion before it spreads. Clarity is what separates what belongs to you from what does not. Clarity is what allows you to remain steady, even when something external tries to create imbalance. And right now, that clarity is becoming stronger. You may begin to notice it immediately, a shift in how you perceive things. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel more defined. Thoughts that once felt scattered begin to organize themselves. Emotions that once felt unclear begin to separate into what is yours and what is not. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. Archangel Michael is not giving you something new. He is activating what has always been there, waiting for your awareness to catch up to it. Because the moment you recognize your own center, nothing external can quietly pull you away from it. This is where true stability comes from. Not from controlling what happens around you, but from remaining grounded in yourself regardless of what happens. And that grounding creates a kind of boundary that does not need to be forced. It simply exists. Anything that does not align with it cannot settle, cannot take shape, cannot remain without being noticed. That is your natural state when you are fully aware. But most people are taught to look outward first, to analyze situations, people, events, without ever checking what is happening within themselves. And that creates a gap, a space where external influence can move unnoticed, because the internal reference point is not being used. Archangel Michael closes that gap. He brings your focus back inward, not to isolate you, but to stabilize you. Because once you are stable within yourself, everything else becomes easier to interpret. You no longer question every shift. You no longer doubt every feeling. You recognize patterns early, before they have time to repeat. And recognition is what keeps you in control of your direction. This is why you were brought into this moment before completion. Not just to see what was happening, but to reconnect with what has always been capable of interrupting it. Your awareness is not passive. Your presence is not neutral. Your clarity is not insignificant. These are the exact elements that determine whether something external continues or dissolves. And right now, they are active. Archangel Michael's presence does not overshadow yours. It strengthens it. It reinforces it. It ensures that you do not overlook it again. Because once you fully recognize your own center, you stop searching for control outside of yourself. You stop waiting for something to change externally before you feel stable internally. You become steady first, and everything else responds to that. Stay with this understanding. Do not move past it too quickly, because what comes next will reveal how to recognize the subtle signs that something has already begun to affect your space, and how to identify them before they deepen. Type "I am centered" in the comments if you feel this clarity within you. Blessing code 7070 is now strengthening your inner awareness. There is a point where something subtle begins to move through your life, not loudly, not in a way that demands immediate attention, but quietly enough that it blends into your normal routine. And this is where Archangel Michael directs your focus now, not to create doubt, but to help you recognize patterns that may have already started forming before this moment of awareness reached you. Because the truth is, influence rarely announces itself at the beginning. It reveals itself through small, consistent shifts that feel easy to dismiss. You may have noticed it without fully acknowledging it. A sense that something feels slightly off, even when everything appears normal on the surface. A moment where your energy dips without a clear reason. A sudden lack of motivation where there was once clarity. These are not dramatic disruptions, but they are noticeable enough to leave a quiet question in your mind. A question you may have ignored because nothing seems serious enough to investigate. Archangel Michael explains that these early signs are not meant to alarm you. They are meant to inform you. Because once you recognize them, you stop allowing them to pass unnoticed. And recognition is the first step in preventing anything from deepening. Think about your recent experiences. Were there moments when your focus felt scattered, even when you tried to concentrate? Times when your thoughts looped in a way that didn't feel productive, repeating the same doubts or uncertainties without resolution. This is one of the first signs, not confusion itself, but repetition without clarity. A cycle that keeps you occupied but does not move you forward. Then there is the emotional shift. Not intense enough to be overwhelming but present enough to be felt. A subtle irritation. A quiet heaviness, a sense of disconnection that comes and goes without explanation. You may have attributed it to stress, to daily pressures, to normal fluctuations. And while those explanations are not wrong, they may not be complete. Because when something external begins to influence your internal state, it often mirrors what you would normally feel, but without a clear origin. Archangel Michael highlights another sign: changes in how you perceive others. Moments where interactions feel slightly different, even if nothing obvious has changed. You may find yourself reading into things more than usual, questioning intentions, or feeling a distance where there was once ease. This is not about others changing. It is about your perception being subtly influenced, creating interpretations that may not align with reality. This is how unnoticed patterns begin. Not through obvious disruption, but through small distortions in clarity. You may also notice physical responses, not extreme, but present. A feeling of restlessness when you try to relax. A sense of fatigue that doesn't fully match your level of activity. A slight tension that lingers without a clear cause. These are not problems on their own, but they are signals. Indicators that something within your system is processing more than you realize. Archangel Michael does not ask you to analyze these signs with fear. He asks you to observe them with neutrality. Because observation removes exaggeration while still allowing recognition. It keeps you grounded, aware, but not overwhelmed. Another important sign is hesitation. Moments where you second-guess decisions that would normally feel simple. A delay in action, not because you lack ability, but because something creates doubt where there was once confidence. This hesitation is subtle, but it affects direction over time. Small delays accumulate, creating a sense of stagnation that feels difficult to explain. And perhaps the most important sign is disconnection from your own clarity. Times when you feel less certain about what you already know. When your intuition feels quieter, harder to access, or less reliable than usual. This is not because your intuition has weakened. It is because something has begun to interfere with your ability to hear it clearly. But here's what changes everything. The moment you recognize these signs, they stop operating unnoticed. They lose the ability to blend into your normal experience. They become visible. And once something is visible, it can no longer quietly shape your direction. Archangel Michael emphasizes that recognition is not the end. It is the turning point. Because now, Instead of moving through these shifts unconsciously, you are observing them. You are separating what belongs to you from what does not. You are reclaiming clarity, one moment at a time. This is not about proving that something has affected you. It is about ensuring that nothing continues without your awareness. And now, you are aware. Stay grounded in that awareness. Because what comes next will reveal how this entire situation is reaching its final attempt, and why resistance may feel stronger right before it ends. Type "I recognize" the signs in the comments if this resonates with your experience. Blessing code 8080 is now restoring your clarity and perception. There is a pattern that repeats itself in moments of transition, and Archangel Michael reveals it with precision. Resistance often intensifies right before it loses its ability to continue. Not at the beginning, not when something is quietly forming, but at the very end, when completion is close and interruption becomes possible. This is where you are now. Not at the start of something unknown, but at the edge of something that is trying to finalize itself before you fully step into awareness. This is why the pressure feels different. It is not constant. It is not overwhelming. But it is noticeable in a specific way, like something trying to hold your attention just long enough to pull you away from clarity. You may feel a sudden urge to dismiss everything you have just understood. A thought that says this is unnecessary, that you are overthinking, that you should move on and not give this any more attention. That thought is not random. It is part of the final attempt. Archangel Michael explains that when something hath been operating unnoticed, it depends on continuity. It needs your attention to remain scattered. It needs your awareness to drift back into routine. Because the moment you stay present, the moment you remain grounded in what you now recognize, the entire process begins to weaken. And weakening leads to collapse. But before collapse happens, there is always one last effort to maintain itself. Not through force, but through distraction. Through subtle shifts in your focus. Through small interruptions that seem unrelated but are timed precisely to pull you away from this moment of clarity. You may notice it as restlessness, a sudden desire to check something else, to move away, to stop engaging with this awareness. Or it may appear as doubt, a quiet questioning of whether any of this matters. These are not dramatic reactions, but they are effective when they go unnoticed, because they create distance between you and the clarity you have just gained. This is how the final attempt works, not by confronting you directly, but by redirecting you indirectly. Archangel Michael's message is steady: do not follow that redirection. Because what you are experiencing right now is not coincidence. It is alignment meeting resistance. It is awareness interrupting a process that was not meant to be seen. And when something hidden is seen, it reacts. Not emotionally, not consciously, but structurally. It attempts to maintain itself by restoring the conditions it depends on: your distraction, your doubt, your movement away from awareness. But you are no longer in that state. You are present. You are observing. And that changes the entire outcome. The final attempt cannot succeed in the same way it would have before, because you are no longer unaware. You are not moving through this moment passively. You are engaged with it, and engagement disrupts continuation. This is why Archangel Michael does not tell you to fight anything. He tells you to remain, to stay with your awareness, to not rush past this moment. Because the more stable you are in your clarity, the less space there is for anything else to complete. You may also notice something else, a slight intensification of the very signs you recognized earlier. A brief return of distraction, of emotional fluctuation, of hesitation. This is not regression. This is the final pattern attempting to repeat itself one last time before it loses its ability to continue. And this is where most people misunderstand the process. They assume that if something reappears, it means it is still strong. But in reality, repetition at this stage is often a sign of collapse approaching. Because when something can no longer sustain itself, it cycles more quickly, trying to maintain a structure that is already weakening. Archangel Michael wants you to see this clearly so that you do not misinterpret it. So that you do not step back into doubt when you notice these patterns briefly reappearing. They are not signs of failure. They are signs that the process is losing stability. Stay steady. Do not engage with the distraction. Do not follow the doubt. Do not move away from the awareness you have already reached. Because this is the final moment where your presence determines the outcome. Not through action, but through stability. Not through force, but through clarity. You are not being asked to do more. You are being asked to remain. And in remaining, you allow everything that depended on your absence to lose its ground. Hold this position, because what comes next is the turning point, the moment where what was trying to complete itself begins to break instead. Type "I do not waver" in the comments if you are choosing to remain steady. Blessing code 9090 is now sealing your awareness. As you stand firm in this moment, understand this. Your awareness is not just protecting you. It is lighting the path for others who are still walking in confusion. Every time you choose to support this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are sowing a seed into someone else's breakthrough. The Lord declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and right now, that promise is alive over your obedience. I feel this deeply. When I give, I become a vessel for God's light to reach souls I may never meet. This is not just support. This is participation in divine work. Do not delay this moment of obedience. Release your seed now, and watch how heaven multiplies it back into your life with purpose and power. There are moments where understanding is enough, and then there are moments where understanding must be followed by decision. Archangel Michael now shifts the tone, not into fear, but into unmistakable authority. Because everything that has been revealed to you up to this point, the awareness, the timing, the recognition, the final attempt, all of it leads to the single, defining moment. A moment where delay is no longer neutral. Delay, in most situations, feels harmless. It feels like space, like time to think, to process, to revisit later. But Archangel Michael makes it clear, this is not one of those moments. Because what is unfolding is not waiting for you to decide. It is moving toward completion unless it is interrupted by your full presence now. This is why the command is direct. Do not delay. Not because something dramatic will instantly overpower you, but because hesitation creates a gap. And that gap allows what is already weakening to regain just enough continuity to finish forming. Not fully strong, not fully stable, but complete enough to settle into your experience without being questioned. And once something settles, it becomes familiar. Once it becomes familiar, it becomes harder to separate. That is the nature of delay. Archangel Michael is not asking you to rush blindly. He is asking you to recognize that you have already been given everything you need in this moment: awareness, clarity, recognition, understanding. There is nothing missing that requires you to step away and return later. Everything is already here, aligned in a way that rarely happens. And when alignment like this appears, it is meant to be met immediately. You may feel the instinct to pause, to say, "I will think about this," or "I will come back to this later." But that instinct is exactly what allows patterns to complete. Not through force, but through postponement. because postponement removes you from the moment where interruption is still possible. Archangel Michael's presence intensifies here, not in pressure, but in certainty. He is not uncertain about what is happening. He is not guessing. He has already seen what occurs when awareness is followed by delay. The moment passes, the pattern completes, and what could have been interrupted becomes something that must later be unraveled. And unraveling takes more effort than interruption. This is why this moment is being emphasized so strongly. Not because you are in danger, but because you are in position. Position to interrupt. Position to remain aware. Position to allow something that was forming to lose its ability to complete. And that position exists only while you remain present. The command to not delay is not about urgency without reason. It is about precision. It is about recognizing that you are at the exact point where your awareness has the highest impact. A moment earlier, you would not have seen clearly. A moment later, the process may have already settled. But now, right now, you are exactly where you need to be. Archangel Michael does not need you to act in a specific physical way. He needs you to hold your awareness without interruption. To not step away mentally, emotionally, or physically from this clarity. Because the moment you stay, the moment you remain fully present, the structure of what was forming begins to weaken further. This is how interruption happens. Not through forceful action, but through unwavering presence. You may notice that as you stay, something shifts internally. The confusion that may have been forming loses its hold. The subtle pressure begins to dissipate. The sense of uncertainty starts to clear. These are not imagined changes. They are direct responses to your decision to not delay. Because when awareness is held steadily, anything that depends on your absence cannot sustain itself. Archangel Michael reinforces this. You are not being asked to fight anything outside of you. You are being asked to remain aligned within yourself. Because alignment is what dissolves what does not belong. This is the command. Not to rush, not to react, but to remain. To not step away, to not postpone, to not disconnect from the clarity you have reached. Because in this exact moment, your presence is not passive. It is decisive. And what happens next will not be determined by force, but by whether you stayed or whether you drifted. Hold your position. Because the next moment is the turning point. The exact point where what was trying to complete itself begins to break under the weight of your awareness. Type "I do not delay" in the comments if you are choosing to stay fully present. Blessing code 1010 is now activating decisive clarity within you. There is a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible at first, where something that was building begins to lose its structure. Not all at once, not in a dramatic collapse, but in a subtle shift that changes everything. Archangel Michael speaks into this exact moment now, because what was forming has reached the point where it can no longer sustain itself under your awareness. This is the turning point. Not something coming toward you, but something already in motion now beginning to break. You may not see it externally. You may not hear anything change around you. But internally, something has already shifted. The tension that once felt unclear is no longer holding the same weight. The subtle pressure that tried to pull your attention away is no longer as convincing. The patterns that were trying to form are no longer stable. This is not coincidence. This is interruption taking effect. Archangel Michael reveals that what was attempting to complete itself depended on continuity, on your lack of awareness, on your distraction, on your absence from this exact moment. But you did not remain absent. You stayed. You recognized. You held your awareness steady. And that changed the outcome. Because when something hidden is brought into awareness before completion, it cannot finalize in the same way. It loses its cohesion. It loses the ability to anchor itself into your experience. It begins to fragment, to dissolve, to break apart before it ever fully becomes what it was trying to be. This is what is happening now. The process is no longer moving forward. It is unraveling. Archangel Michael does not describe this as a battle, because there is no longer anything to fight. What remains is simply the collapse of something that can no longer continue under observation. And collapse, at this stage, is inevitable. You may feel a sense of release begin to form. Not instantly overwhelming, but noticeable. A lightness where there was tension. A clarity where there was uncertainty. A steadiness returning to your thoughts, your emotions, your perception. These are not random feelings. They are the result of something losing its hold before it could settle. This is what interruption looks like when it is successful. Not dramatic, not chaotic, but precise, complete in its own way. Archangel Michael emphasizes something important here. What is breaking was never stronger than you. It only appeared effective because it was operating without your awareness. The moment you became aware, the balance shifted. What seemed external and influential became visible and therefore limited. And limitation leads to dissolution. You are witnessing that now, even if it is not visible in a physical sense. The process that was forming has lost its ability to complete. The final attempt has already weakened. The continuity has already been interrupted. And now, what remains is simply the end of something that no longer has support. This is why you were brought into this moment before completion. Not to react, not to resist, but to be present at the exact point where your awareness would be enough. And it was. Archangel Michael stands steady, not because there is still something to stop, but because the work of interruption has already taken place. His role now is to ensure that you recognize what has just happened. Because recognition prevents doubt from re-entering. It prevents you from questioning whether anything changed. Something did change. A direction shifted. The process broke. The outcome altered. And you were part of that. Not through force, but through presence. Not through action, but through awareness. This is the power of staying in the moment instead of drifting away from it. And now, as the breaking completes, you may notice a return to your natural state. Your thoughts feel more aligned. Your perception feels clearer. Your energy feels more stable. These are not things being given to you. They are things being restored as what did not belong loses its influence. Archangel Michael's message here is simple, but final. What was attempting to complete itself hath been interrupted. It will not settle. It will not continue in the same way. It has lost its structure. And now, it is ending. Stay grounded in this realization. Because what comes next is not about what was breaking. It is about what returns to you now that the interference is gone. Type IT is broken in the comments if you feel this shift within you. Blessing code 1111 is now sealing this moment of release. There is always a moment after something breaks, a quiet space where the absence of pressure begins to reveal itself. It is not loud. It is not overwhelming. But it is unmistakable. Archangel Michael speaks into this moment now, because what you are entering is not just the end of something, it is the beginning of restoration. What was interrupted has already lost its structure. What was trying to form has already broken. And now, the space it once occupied is no longer filled with interference. It is open, clear, and ready to return to its natural state. This is where reversal begins, not as a sudden, dramatic shift, but as a steady return to alignment. The clarity that was slightly clouded begins to sharpen. The emotional weight that felt unexplained begins to lift. The subtle hesitation that slowed your decisions begins to dissolve. These are not new conditions being created. They are your original state re-emerging now that what did not belong is no longer present. Archangel Michael makes this clear. Nothing was taken from you permanently. Nothing was removed beyond reach. What you experienced was interference, not loss. And interference, once removed, does not leave a void. It reveals what was always there, waiting to be experienced without distortion. This is why restoration does not feel like something being added to you. It feels like something returning. A sense of steadiness in your thoughts. A natural flow in your decisions. A quiet confidence that does not need to be forced. These are not external gifts. They are internal states that were temporarily obscured. And now, they are accessible again without resistance. You may begin to notice this in small ways at first. A decision that feels easier than it did before. A moment of calm where there was previously tension. A clarity in a situation that once felt confusing. These are signs that your internal alignment is stabilizing again. Archangel Michael emphasizes that restoration is not rushed. It unfolds naturally, without pressure. Because once interference is removed, there is nothing left to push against. Everything begins to settle into place on its own. This is where many people misunderstand the process. They expect restoration to feel intense, to feel like a dramatic transformation. But true restoration is often quiet. It feels like returning to yourself. Like remembering what clarity feels like after a period of distraction. And that return is powerful. Because it is sustainable. What comes from force often fades. But what returns naturally remains. Archangel Michael also reveals something deeper about reversal. It is not just the removal of what was forming. It is the rebalancing of your direction. Any subtle shifts that may have begun to pull you slightly off course are now being corrected. Not through effort, but through alignment. You are no longer moving under unnoticed influence. You are moving with awareness. And awareness naturally guides direction. This means that decisions you make now will feel more accurate. Your responses will feel more grounded. Your perception will feel more reliable. Not because something external is guiding you, but because the internal interference that once blurred your clarity is no longer present. This is the true meaning of reversal. Not going backward, but returning forward correctly. Archangel Michael stands in this moment not as a protector against something ongoing, but as a witness to what has already been restored. His presence now is steady, calm, assured, because there is no longer anything attempting to complete itself. What remains is you. Clear, aware, aligned. And this alignment changes how everything unfolds from here. You are no longer reacting to subtle shifts without understanding them. You are recognizing patterns early. You are staying present in your awareness. And because of that, nothing can quietly shape your direction without your recognition again. This is not just restoration. This is elevation through awareness. Because once you experience the difference between clarity and interference, you do not return to unconscious patterns in the same way. You carry that recognition forward. You move with it. You trust it. And that trust stabilizes your path moving forward. Stay with this sense of return. Do not rush past it. Because what comes next is the final realization, not about what was removed, but about who you have become through this moment of awareness and alignment. Type "I am restored" in the comments if you feel this return within you. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your restoration. There is a quiet transformation that happens after restoration, not something that announces itself loudly, but something that settles deeply within you. Archangel Michael speaks now not about what has ended, but about what has begun. Because this moment was never Arabic fa Arabic af Arabic taught about interruption. It was never Arabic fa Arabic af Arabic taught about stopping something from completing. It was about positioning you differently from this point forward. You are not standing where you were before this began. You may look the same. Your surroundings may appear unchanged. But internally, something has shifted in a way that cannot be undone. You have moved from unawareness into recognition, from passive experience into conscious presence, and that shift creates a new foundation beneath everything you do moving forward. Archangel Michael makes this clear. What you have gained in this moment is not temporary. It is not something that fades once the situation passes. It is a new level of awareness that stays with you, shaping how you perceive, how you respond, and how you move through future moments. This is your new position, not a position of defense, constantly watching for something to happen, but a position of clarity where nothing can quietly influence you without being noticed. This is the difference. Before, subtle shifts could pass through your awareness without being recognized. Now they cannot, because you have experienced what it feels like to see something mid-process, to recognize it before it completes, to stay present long enough for it to break. That experience changes you. It recalibrates your perception. It strengthens your trust in your own awareness. And that trust becomes your stability moving forward. Archangel Michael emphasizes that you are no longer operating from the same level of vulnerability. Not because the world has changed, but because your awareness has expanded. An expanded awareness reduces vulnerability in ways that no external protection ever could. You will begin to notice this in the days ahead. Situations that once felt confusing will become clearer more quickly. Interactions that once left you uncertain will become easier to read. Decisions that once required hesitation will feel more natural. This is not because life has become simpler. It is because you are seeing more clearly. And clarity changes everything. You are no longer reacting first and understanding later. You are recognizing first and then choosing how to respond. This is power in its most grounded form. Not control over others. Not force over situations. But alignment within yourself that cannot be easily disrupted. Archangel Michael stands with a sense of completion now, not because his role has ended, but because your role has strengthened. You are no longer depending on external guidance to recognize what is happening around you. You are carrying that recognition within you. And that is what makes this moment lasting. Because what you carry within you travels with you into every future moment. This is your elevation. Not something given from outside, but something activated from within. And with this elevation comes responsibility, not in a heavy sense but in a conscious one. To remain aware, to stay present, to trust what you recognize instead of dismissing it. Because now that you have seen clearly, returning to unawareness is no longer natural. You move differently now. You observe more carefully. You trust more deeply. And because of that, nothing that depends on your absence will find the same space in your life again. This is not the end of something. It is the beginning of a new way of moving, a new way of seeing, a new way of being present within your own life. Archangel Michael's final message in this moment is simple, but powerful. Remain as you are now, aware, steady, grounded. Because this state is not temporary. It is your natural position when you choose to stay in it. And now, you know how to stay. Type I am aligned in the comments if you are stepping into this new position fully. Blessing code 1313 is now sealing your elevation and clarity. As you stand in this new alignment, understand this truth. Your awareness is not just transforming your life, it is becoming a light for others still walking in unseen confusion. Every time you choose to support this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are sowing into a harvest of awakened souls. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And right now, that promise is alive, speaking directly into your moment. I feel this strongly. When I give, I become part of God's work on earth, extending clarity where there was once darkness. This is not just an offering. It is a prophetic act of alignment with divine purpose. Do not hesitate in this moment. Step forward with intention, release your seed, and watch how heaven responds with multiplied favor, clarity, and direction in your life.